what does energy really mean? Where does it come from?
So I think energy is kind of about the vibe you carry, in the very simplest way putting it. You get near somebody and you feel something about them, right? Or you walk into a space and you're like, it feels really great in here, or it feels kind of weird, right? That is energy at work, to put it in a very simple way to your audience.
So how is there any scientific approach to it, or how does it really work? How does somebody get the vibes of a room, and how can someone use that in their everyday life?
People use their intuition to feel the vibes in the room. And there's many ways that we can use our intuition throughout our daily lives. And that's everything from picking the right client to work with, or a place where we want to settle and live. We're looking at all types of energetic modalities that can help us do things. There's plenty of people that follow astrology and make business decisions around that. There's a very famous quote by JP Morgan that states, millionaires do not use astrology, billionaires do. So that tells me something about how he was making business decisions. And there's also a practice called astrocartography, where you're looking at a way, it has to do with your astrology, that you're looking at the world map, and you can basically work with an astrocartographer to tell you where in the world are the best places for you to live, to travel, to relax, to start a business. And sometimes those are not all in the same place.
What role do crystals play in this whole thing?
The role crystals play within the world of energy is one piece of the puzzle. There are many, many modalities within energetics that you can study. Crystals happen to be one of them. And I always like to say to people, oh, you don't believe in crystals? That's fine. Well, give me your cell phone. You don't need that anymore, because something called epitaxial crystals run our cell phones, microwaves, routers, satellites, you name it. We basically wouldn't have modern technology without crystals, because they're able to absorb and amplify and transmute energy.
Okay, so in the technical space, I understand it, because we have those energy going through the phone.
Mm-hmm.
The crystals are doing stuff with it. But how does it do with human energy? Where are the comparison between those two?
Sure. So crystals work with the energy of a person, right? It's like the crystal and the person are having a dialogue. And so if a person is trying to understand something that's going on with them in life, hey, this is wrong with me, or I feel this way, like, what's a crystal I could work with? Working with crystals is a 5,000-year-old plus practice all over the world. So to put it in very simple terms, crystals each carry their own lessons, medicine, meaning, chemical makeup, and that all comes into play with what's going on with a person. So it's a very case-by-case basis on a crystal that somebody would work with, and they can do this by everything from holding a crystal and meditating, right? That's one way to do it. There is something else called crystal gridding, where you actually set up a certain grid within a space, and the crystals are kind of all like talking to each other, if you want to think about it that way, and protecting the space, clearing the space, changing the vibe of the space. Again, it depends on which crystals that you're using. And science can come into this, and I'll give you an example. Since they all have their own chemical makeup, bloodstone's a great example of this. It's a crystal that's used for muscle recovery, or you just started a workout routine, sore muscles, things that kind of feel like in the workout vein. And it's interesting because bloodstone has a super high magnesium content. And we know if we have sore muscles, you can also take magnesium powder, right? So you're looking at crystals that can even have certain properties, chemical properties to them that actually translate to why we're using them.
Wow. Okay, so just to be fair and frank, this is all completely new to me.
Well,
Here
welcome.
thank you very much. Here in Germany, the most we have to do with crystals is probably in the mountains, when we go into one of the parks and go into them and all of that. So I never heard about using them to talk to them or to gain anything from them. And you take some crystals onto your journeys when you take a trip. Why is that?
Sure. So as I mentioned, every crystal has its own meaning to it, or its own job, if you will. So when you go on a trip, you want to take certain crystals with you that are going to help on the trip. So tiger's eye is the stone for protection and travel. We also have hematite, which is used to help with jet lag, take away any kind of sleepy or low energy feelings to it. You can also travel with black obsidian, which is excellent for grounding and protection. So that would be my crystal RX for when you're on the road.
Okay, so just to get a scope of everything, how much does one crystal normally cost? Of course, there are different types, and I think there are different prices for each one of them because some are more valuable than others. But so when someone wants to get started, how much money do they need to get their first crystals?
Sure. That's an excellent question. And I would answer that the same way. You need to know what you're looking at. And I think about that if somebody looks at 2 bottles of wine and they're not a sommelier and don't understand the intricacies of that wine, they're like, why does this one cost $6 and why does this one cost $2,000, right? The sommelier would easily be able to answer that. I would also tell you, it depends on what you're trying to do with that crystal. There are crystals that are very common and plentiful to the earth. So those ones, supply and demand, right? Those ones will be a lesser cost, but then you can get crystals that are very, very, very rare, or that we're not seeing come out in pockets in mines anymore on the earth, which make them so rare. So I would say it's a little bit of what you need to know what you're looking at, which is why you should work with an expert like me if you're trying to curate your crystal collection. And also, it doesn't have to cost that much. I can tell you the first crystal everybody should buy in their for their collection, if that's the next question you're going to ask me, is clear quartz, which is the greatest amplifier crystal that we have. So whatever you sit clear quartz next to will amplify the vibration of the other crystal that it's with, right? So for example, if you put clear quartz and lapis lazuli, which is the stone for communication, you're amplifying communication. Why do you do that? So somebody that podcasts a lot, that would be a great combination for them, or that works in PR, right? Somebody that's forward facing on camera. All of these are great reasons to use that combination. And clear quartzes don't cost that much. You could find clear quartzes for $2 to $10, right? Again, depending on the size, if it's been polished. Like I can't get into the intricacies of that unless I see the crystal.
Okay. Wow. So are there any stories out of your life experience where crystals really helped you to get through a hard situation?
Crystals have played a big part of my life for the last 20 years. Where would I even start on stories? I mean, I wrote a book called Crystal RX, which is basically what I've been explaining to you about how different crystals work in different ways with each other and with people and their spaces. Okay. So yes, it's played a large role in my life. I've done healings with crystals. I help to balance the space of my clients with crystals. Crystals can be put into water and you can make like a medicinal water, but please be careful If anyone heard that and thinks that's a really fun idea, you don't just drop a crystal into your water. You need to do your research and make sure, because some are toxic. So please, yes, don't just drop any old crystal into your water. So they've been around me for a long time, and they're also very helpful to see what's going on in my life and the life of my clients. As I mentioned, each crystal has its own kind of little message for you. So before I do one-on-one sessions with people, I have a big shelf of crystals, and I'll go over before the session and intuit the crystal my client needs. And I don't know why, right? I'm just using my intuition. And when I pick the stone, so let's just pretend it's rose quartz, which is the stone for love. And I'm seeing a new client, and I go over to the shelf, and my intuition tells me this is the crystal for this person I'm about to see. And I get on Zoom with my client, because I see clients worldwide, and I'll look at them and say, hey, what's going on in your love life? And they'll say, how did you know? I said, by the crystal I picked, obviously. It happens all the time.
Wow. Is there, because I had multiple people talking about spirituality, and also somebody who knows how to put out tarot cards and all of that stuff. Is there any way you could explain that so it would really, really, really make all sense together? Not saying it's not making sense or doing anything bad about it, just for somebody who's completely new to it to get it a bit better, because just you standing out there getting a crystal from your intuition sounds kind of vague.
It sounds wild and wacky, doesn't it?
Yeah, a bit, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And it's, there is trust. And I'd also say, and I mean this in a not religious way, but there's faith to it, right? There's that you're using your intuition and saying, that's the one for me. That's the one I pick. And I can tell you with crystals, because I was a huge skeptic when this all kind of came into my life 20 years ago. Huge skeptic. I was like, this is bullshit, really. And the thing was, my first crystals teacher, every time I would come and see her, she'd say, oh, and I knew nothing about crystals at the time, right? I would go, she said, within my studio, pick the crystal that is calling your name. And sometimes, honestly, I would pick it because it matched my outfit. I would pick it because it was sparkly. I would pick it because it was ugly. Whatever it was, I was trying to debunk the system. Yeah. And every time I picked a crystal, she'd say, hey, is this happening right now in your life? And I said, yes. How could you know that? And she said, well, because of the crystal you chose. Okay, so crystals and tarot cards are both what are known as forms of divination. Yeah. And divination is a practice where you use some kind of object to get information for yourself or somebody else. There's lots of methods of divination. Those are just two. You can also use an ancient Chinese method called the I Ching. Our very ancient ancestors, before we could, print on paper and have tarot cards, would read off of piles of dirt, cloud patterns, ripples in the water, fire, very elemental things. So, but now we have shiny, mind shiny crystals and tarot cards that we get to use as modern humans. And when you're choosing a tarot card or crystal, you're using your intuition, you're picking, let's say you flip tarot cards over and you know how to read tarot cards, or you have a practitioner that knows how to read tarot cards on your behalf, and they give you a reading, and it's very, very, very accurate. It was you who picked the cards, like your energetic field, this kind of unseen force around you, your intuition, you chose those, and you get a reading off of that. And yeah, people can say they don't believe in that, but after doing this for 20 years and also being wildly accurate, as a former skeptic, I can't deny what I'm seeing. And I use tarot and crystals in my practice as kind of a conversation starter for bigger things that are going on in my client's life. And that's where they come in for me.
So, from the perspective of a skeptic, the main argument would be to say that, yeah, you can read those tarot cards or the crystal and then you say something about me, but most of the time when you read the horoscope, for instance, in the newspaper in Germany, it's always very, very vague. Like something's great is about to happen to you or something's bad is about to happen to you. And on that specific day, it starts to rain on your way home and you say, oh, I knew it. It was in my horoscope that day. But of course, it's completely vague because you know something bad is going to happen today. So you're watching out for stuff that goes bad. And then you will find something because you're watching out. So what are you saying to people who are bringing that up?
Sure. And I agree with that. I can't speak to the astrology in a local paper, and it might be incredibly vague. What I would suggest is you go and see a professional astrologer that does this for a living. And do you know anything about astrology? You have a sun sign and you have many. Yeah.
The sun sign is first for me, but I know I have a birth sign. That's
birth sign. Sign. Yeah, it's the same thing. So we not only have a birth sign, but there's also all these other pieces in the chart. It looks like a big pie divvied up into little pieces, and it's called a natal chart, looks completely different. So I like to tell people it's their energetic fingerprint. No two birth charts or natal charts are the same. So it's incredibly important. This is a very detailed and personal thing to look at. So if you do want to get a proper astrology reading that's absolutely tailored to you, and there are things that you can find out with your astrology reader that like, hey, these months are great to do this. These months, this will happen. This is a great time to travel. This is a great time to start a new business. You're going to meet somebody here, right? All of that is very easily seen within your natal chart if you work with a professional that knows what they're doing and is also able to sit down with you one-on-one. To your point, that's incredibly personal, and you have an astrologer writing in a newspaper that has to speak to so many people. Right? Like if you have a chart, so like imagine your sign says, to your point, something really good is going to happen to you in the month of October. And that's as far as they can go, right? But if you then go and sat down with an astrologer, they could list out what the actual good thing is. Like, be very specific about it.
Wow. Okay, so this is also the first time I hear about that. So it's just the forefront to have someone who is trying to talk to all Tauruses. And then there's somebody who talks to one specific Taurus who was born on that special date with, that aside, back to the crystal thing, because you said you were a big skeptic about the whole thing, and especially you had a whole fashion styling career that you gave up for this new aspiration. So what turned you over? What made you not skeptical anymore? Was it really just always picking the right crystal, or were there many more factors to it?
There were many more factors. Crystals were kind of like my gateway drug into the world of energetics. So it did start with crystals. Yes, that's what happened. I went into a crystal store, and again, I'm making a very long story short. I ended up, one of the women that was in there became my crystals mentor, and I did keep picking crystals, and it would be exactly what was going on, or she would make predictions and say, hey, within the next 2 weeks, this very specific thing was going to happen, and it did.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing that happen. Okay, fine. So then I start to learn about crystals, and now think about this. So I'm on a set for a fashion shoot, and there's jewelry, right? And I remember this very specific event that I was at a shoot, and Cartier came and brought jewelry for the shoot, and the model ran over. And when you bring very high priced jewels to a photo shoot, it comes with a guard, right? Like a security person has to come with the crystals to keep an eye on them. And the model, everybody runs over, right? Because the jewels are here. Yays. It's the sparkliest thing in the room besides the model. And the model looks at this one ring, and she's like, I really want to wear that. That's the one I love. And I looked at her and I said, hey, do you have some stomach issues going on? And you've been really, really tired. Like your energy feels really low, and you haven't been, your diet hasn't been right. And I just started saying all this stuff to her. And she's like, yes. How did you know that? And I said, well, the crystal you picked, obviously. So it was something that my teacher had taught me. And look, I did it once, but then I did it 50 or 100 more times myself. And it was always accurate. And I can say after doing this now for 20 years and it always being accurate, I'm deducing that there is something to this. I can't deny that at this point.
Okay. I would hate myself if I wouldn't ask the question, but is that possible to do online?
Oh, well, for me, it's possible to do online. So I see people and pick crystals on their behalf. We have a reading, and then I send them the little box with their crystals and tarot cards, no matter where in the world they live. So I take time before the reading and pick a bunch of cards and crystals for them. And then we talk just like you and I are. And then afterwards, I send everything to them so that they can build their own altar or space to what we talked about, because this is what is going on with their energy in their life right now. And I want them to pay attention to that and focus on it, because energy goes where we put it, right? If you are thinking about things, your life tends to lead that way, right? If you're not thinking about things, it's not going to work. And you could think about that, like, if you don't go to the gym, your body's not going to change, right? Like, you're putting thought, effort, time, everything towards an endeavor. It's the same way with anything you're working on. So if you're looking to call love into your life, I have people build love altars. And so you can go over there and think about the type of person you want to call in, or maybe you have specifics about that person. You can sit that there with rose quartz, which is the stone for love, and you're building a small vortex of energy to a certain thing.
Okay.
It could be anything too. Anything.
Wow. Okay. Could those crystals be used to manipulate somebody? Is there a possibility, or am I completely wrong? Because it just said you go on a date, for instance, with somebody, and you just put on the stone on the on the desk, and date's done, all went great, perfect, just because of the crystal. Is that a real thing, or is it just picking the right crystal?
That's a very interesting question. I hope people don't use magic to manipulate others, but it does happen. What I would say is, well, I mean, spells are real, curses are a real thing, right? They just are. That's not something I participate in. However, if someone wants to call love into their life, what you were saying, and it's almost, if you're like manipulating that person to be there, I think what that's doing is it's calling forth like potential partners, right? And you get to choose. They get to choose, right? There's still free will involved in this. Just because you went on this date.
Wow. Okay.
But I think you can use anything to manipulate people. Like, do we want to start talking about the advertising world?
Yeah. No, that
So-
is a whole, we could go, it was just the whole stone thing because it's just so magically. Wow. Okay. So thank you so much for this, first insight to this introduction to the whole energy and crystal world. Where is a place people should go to link up with you and get to know you a bit better and so on?
Sure. If you want to book a session with me, you can go to stylrituals.com. If you want to connect and see what I'm all about, I'm on all the socials at style_rituals. And if you want to start to nerd out about crystals, I wrote a book called Crystal RX, and it's geared towards people that are just getting into this. So it's the 101 on everything crystal.
Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.